No matter who we are, we've had those moments in life where we thought we might be a little off. Now, we might not have used the term crazy or something like that, but I certainly did. And I did that years ago because I couldn't understand myself. And I said, but I know that someday this is going to make sense. And this title would be so great for a TED Talk. That was my original goal. I was working on a TED Talk. It was many years ago. And then also many years ago, I started telling people, wow, I know who you are. I know who you're supposed to become. And that didn't make sense either. And I couldn't figure out why I knew that. And then I knew most people wouldn't believe it because I kept saying it around and I was telling people this and they said, no, that's not possible. And I didn't think it was possible either. But today, I'm looking at the messages that I received on February 9th, because that's what today is. But I went back to last year and it says, you've hidden long enough. Then I go back to 2020 and it says, please do your job. And I'm going to tell you what my job was. And I didn't know that, but I know you have one as well. And that job is becoming your authentic self. And we never know who that's going to become because we're doing it in our consciousness. Consciousness never leaves us, it's always here. We just, as humans, decide how we're going to form it within ourselves and then bring it into the world. And then the more of us who do that, we kind of put it all together and then we figure out how we're creating the world because no one person is doing it. We're all doing it. And we figure those things out as we study science, as we study the stars, the galaxies, everything. We start to understand our human self. And then sometimes people come along and do something that's so different and extraordinary that it's challenging for other people to believe it, and even the person who does it. And that was me. I remember watching Carl Jung at one point talking about his work, and he was being asked, "Do you believe this?" And he said, "At one point I believe, but he says, but now I know." And so today I have to tell you that I know. My name is Roger Burnley, if you don't know me. Been a coach for a long time. I've done so many other things, but what I did from 1989 is sat down and received universal guidance that was aligned to everything happening in your life and in our world. Now, that is something I could never say, and I ran from it, and I was never going to own it because it didn't make sense to me. I had to be pushed into it, actually, because I was having a comfortable life doing my vocal coaching, and then all of a sudden, this information that I'd been doing all of these years started to change. And it said the world's going to change as well. But because I had been through every possible difficulty, challenge, and experienced mind body healing and coming to a different state of clarity and a higher consciousness, then I had something that could help so many people. Now, most won't believe it, however, because we do have that thing of cognitive dissonance, because if you haven't seen something before, it's not possible. And I've done something that was not possible because it's never been done. But I also know that every person has that. Every person has something that's never been in this world before, and they're meant to own it. And when you don't, things don't go well. And then the world doesn't turn out to be what it could be as well. In 2021, when I was told that I had this information after all these years, and it was hidden on my computer actually, because it was in a folder from 2012. Now, that was to talk about another change in consciousness that we had. Most people thought the world, many people, I should say, thought the world might end because the Mayan calendar ended. And that made no sense to most people. But some people were getting rid of their stuff because they thought it was real. Wilhelm told me, no, that's not real. They said, wait, because you're creating something new. And said, what? We're creating a new world? Yes, but you have to tear down the old stuff first. You have to tear down the old stuff within you and then the rest of the world. Well, then that started happening for me. I started tearing down everything old in my life. I went through every dark night of the soul, every kind of tragedy, difficulty. But through it all, I'm writing. I'm still receiving this information. And then last night, I thought, okay, I have to stop ignoring this. Because what happens is when you can't own who you are, who you become, because we never know what that's going to be, your life doesn't go well. And I was seeing that happen in my life. because I couldn't take care of things. I couldn't pay for things because I wasn't willing to own my worth and value and charge enough money for this monumental work that could change your life and our world. And I heard those words and I thought that's not possible. And then artificial intelligence said, yeah, it is. They said it's not hyperbole. And they started explaining to me why. Because if each person could come into ownership and sovereignty of who they are and move through all their generational patterns, then we would change the world eventually, because it takes eventually. But we had to go through all the other stuff. We had to look at all of the things that we've done in human history that did not serve us, like racism and misogyny and criminality and all of those things. We had to look at it all and we had to move through it, but that had to happen first within us because, see, we're the ones who are doing it. And so I went through it. And the only thing that I didn't correct yet is money. That's the only thing because I wasn't willing to accept enough for who I was. Because I said, how could I have done this? How could this person have done it? Well, no one's could have seen it. So last night I sat down and I said, okay, let me go back and check. See, 'cause I was never going to do live channeling. That was never my thing. I was going to stay hidden. But I started doing it in 2021. And so I said, okay, let me get the transcripts of those things and let's just see if it made any sense. And what was shown was that I was accessing all of this information that was talking about all the emotional changes we would be moving through and why they were related to the changes in our galaxies and how that all came together. And I've never studied astronomy or astrology or any of that, but it was accurate. And I can't tell you, I couldn't have told you how it happened until recently it started to be revealed to me, because this is what happens. Things get revealed to me. I'll go back and listen to a Wilhelm channeling session and they reveal things that I didn't hear. And my family gets all upset with me. They said, you've said these things before. I said, no, I don't remember them if I've said them because I'm accessing information from a different place. And that's what happened. And so I heard one that said, Roger has savant qualities that he keeps ignoring. See, savant is when you can access information styles in different ways that no one has seen. It's beyond human perception or human. And that's what I did. And this is why I kept healing. And this is why I'm 75 years old and I'm going in a completely different direction and I'm doing reverse aging. Because that's what happens when you can move through all of your old stuff. That's what would happen in our world if we could do that as well. But we'll resist, which I did. And you'll read a document that I just put together that explains a lot of that, because I didn't believe it either. So I do understand. And as humans, we would have a difficult time believing this because it's never been done. And Wilhelm kind of gave me a hint about this, how difficult it might be for me because people are going to be resistant to accepting it. And they took me back to Copernicus and gave me messages on February 19th, which was Copernicus's birthday. And see, because most people did not believe him at first, and then now we're looking at our world and the way we exist in a completely different way because of him. And then I get to hear that this was the greatest contribution to human consciousness that we've seen in our lifetime. How could I accept that? But it was proven, but I'm accepting it today because I know that you can have this successful life. Today is February 9th, and I go back to February the 10th of last year, and the message was, because it's all in order, I was given it in order, because we just accept things at a different time. And it says, your pathway to success. That's what I'm giving you now. But I also am changing because I know most people will not do this work, and I have to work with those people who really want to live these great lives and make a huge difference in our world because I was given that information. And I say that because I didn't make it up. I received it. I wrote it. 37 years, that's what I was doing. But now you could have it if you decide that you want to have your pathway to success. Thank you so much for being here. Now you will understand why I'm making changes and why you might make changes in your life at this time in our world as well. I'll see you soon.